Hello, fellow peasants. Tonight I'll be reviewing The First Omen. Alright guys, so I just got back from the movies and I just saw The First Omen. Keep in mind, this is the spoiler-free review, so I'm not going to be spoiling anything, so don't worry about that in this video. I ain't going to spoil shit. This is just going to be what it's about, what I like, what I don't like, in very vague terms, okay? I'm not going to go off into spoiler territory here. All right, so what's it about? So The First Omen is about this girl named Margaret, who is from the U.S. She goes over to Rome to give up her life to the Catholic Church, take her vows, and she's working at this orphanage, and she uncovers this plot within the church to bring the Antichrist into the world. And why does the church want to do that? It's because as of the early 70s in the film, the Catholic Church has lost a lot of members. A lot of people in the world are turning away from the church. And in a desperate attempt to maintain belief and control, they want to bring the Antichrist to fruition, which is the book of Revelations in the Bible. And they think that will instill fear in the masses and help them to regain control. Okay. What do I like? What do I not like about The First Omen? Right off the bat, cinematography, beautifully shot, wonderful. They did film on location in Rome for this film. The opening scenes of this film are gorgeous. From the airport to some of the ruins, just shots of Rome. The introduction to the city, it looks great. The just the camera angles in general. This was shot on 35 millimeter, okay? And they're even showing some of the 35 millimeter prints at select locations around the country right now, okay? And so, beautifully shot. The interiors of things, the outfits. This was an $80 million budget, okay, guys? So, this is a fairly steep budget for a prequel to a 50-year-old franchise, okay, that hasn't seen a movie in 18 years, okay? The last Omen film was in 2006, so it's been a while, all right? So gorgeously shot, beautiful. The only gripe that I have with the cinematography in the film is not so much the camera work, but the color grading. I think there is a little bit of an overuse of an amber yellowish kind of tone to the film. I think it could be dialed back a bit, or maybe not used so much throughout the whole film. There are some daytime scenes that seem to have some where it kind of looks bleached out a bit. I know what they were going for. They wanted it to look a bit older, retro, without, So I get what they were going for with it. I think if they would just dialed it back and maybe used it a little less on some of the brighter scenes, it may not have bleached it out quite as much. But all in all, it's still a nice color grade to the film. I just would have used it. I wouldn't have used it as liberally as they did. Next, the performances. Excellent. Everyone does a really, really good job. I was hesitant to, once I kind of figured out that Father Brennan was in this film, the same priest who gets killed with the rod from the church in the first film, okay? Not the rod, but the lightning bolt or whatever. The rod, well, yeah, the rod falls off the church. I was like, oh, the guy from The Witch is going to play Father Brennan. First of all, I didn't want Father Brennan back in this movie because I was like, what role is he going to play? How's this going to tie in? Who's going to be able to play him effectively enough? And I do think for the most part, the actor from The Witch does a good job portraying Father Brennan. I would say he's like 85% there. It's just his voice is so distinct, and he's trying to do the Scottish accent that Father Brennan has, and he does do it. It's just he has such a deep, strong voice. Like when I hear him talk, I just think The Witch, But in terms of the look, how they did his hair, his makeup, he is believable as Father Brennan for the most part. Everyone else in the film does great. I mean, there's no bad performances in the film. So I have no complaints there. I also like where they went with the story in terms of it being more or less about the church trying to regain like control through belief. Because I always wondered, like, why would the church? I remember watching the original, the 1976, and going, well, that's fucked up. That's interesting, but why would the church want to bring the Antichrist back? Like, or bring the Antichrist into the world, and it makes sense. If you have some corrupt motherfuckers desperate for some power and wanting to maintain control through all this, rebellion and riots and stuff in the early 70s, I mean, it makes sense. It's okay. It's a good explanation. And so I like that. I like that they explained it that way, because I always wondered when I watched the original 1976, like, what the, like, okay, sure, why not? I'll go with it. Gotta keep this vague because this is a spoiler-free review, so I don't want to give away a whole lot. What else do I like? I think I like how they maintain the look, the aesthetic, the feel, the vibe, the everything is it matches the tone of the original trilogy, and I really wanted that the most out of this film. I wanted to feel like it was the same world, and you really get that throughout most of the film. Some of the film, I was like, ooh, this is looking or feeling a little modern. But for the most part, I would say like 80-85% of the film, you're like, oh yeah, we're living and breathing in the same Omen world. It's got that feel, it's got that vibe, it's got that level, it's got that tone of seriousness. And so you really get that at the beginning, and you really get that toward the end of the film. And I will put it this way, this isn't a spoiler. It could be considered a spoiler, but I don't think it is. This movie goes right up. Well, I'm talking right up to the fucking moment that the Thorns get Damien, okay? Like, it goes right into 1976. I like that. I wanted that. Okay, I didn't want this cutting off or taking place several months or a year or so before the events of 1976. Like, shit goes down and it leads right up to that very moment, okay? So that was really good. And to get into things I don't like, I'm gonna have to be like really vague. Things that I don't like. I feel that some things were not explained very well. There's a scene where she's at a nightclub dancing with this guy, and you know, you're just kind of like later in the film, you're like, oh, okay, well, how does that necessarily tie in? And it makes sense in some ways, and then when something else happens, you're like, oh, okay, well, that doesn't make much sense in that respect. I don't think they made a good decision on, so the way that the film ends off, I feel it didn't need to leave it the way it did. I think you could have cut it off there. I think you could have ended it in a manner in which you left no possibility for any more sequels or material, and they do leave it wide open for some other films, which I would not have done. The film made me like a character and feel sympathetic toward a character that I wouldn't have imagined that I would have. It's not horrible what they do and why I feel that way, but I would prefer not to like this person in theory, but now I do. Okay, so, and I don't know how I feel about that. I don't know how I feel about liking this character now, knowing who this character is. They introduce a new character into the fold that I don't think was needed. Okay, so there's some decisions towards the end of this film that I can live with, and I think they're okay, but it's not preferable. Okay, all in all, guys, what would I rate the first Omen? And what I'm basing this rating off of is, does it contribute to the original trilogy? Okay, like I don't give a fuck about this as a standalone film. All right, like I went into this film wondering, like, how is this going to benefit the other three films? How is this does this provide something, or is it just tacked on? Okay, like do I feel the need to watch this to watch the other films? And I'm gonna say it can go either way. I'm mixed on that. Okay, but I think this was a good prequel. I think that it does add some additional insight and background, as I said before, as to why Damien was born, what the church's motivations were for Damien being born. It makes more sense watching 1976 now, going, oh, okay, that's why they swapped him out. That's why they did that. Okay. All right, that makes sense. So on a 1 to 10, I would give the first Omen. I would give the first Omen a 7.5 out of 10. Okay. You might go, well, fuck, I gave it like an 8 or 9 out of 10. Okay, well, that's cool, but I mean, the original Omen is a 10 out of 10 for me, all right? And so I'm not going to put it there, but I'm going to say like 7.5. Maybe an 8. All right, so let's do this. Let's give it an 8. Let's give it a solid 8. I think it deserves that just based on the crafting of the story and what it provides in terms of background detail and cinematography and the performances. So I will give it a solid 8. Let's do that. I went into it being skeptical. I did. The trailer did not blow me away, and I wasn't sure if this was going to contribute anything at all to the first 3 films, and it does. The trailer, if you haven't seen this yet and you've only seen the trailer for this, there's so much more to this film. So much more than what they show in the trailer. The trailer does fuck all to tell you what's going on in this movie, okay? I really liked it. I have my gripes, and I'm going to get into those when I do my spoiler review tomorrow. So stay tuned for that. I'll be posting that tomorrow. I'll be doing my spoiler review and letting you know exactly why in detail I don't like the things I don't like. Yeah, guys, I don't want to go too further into detail or talk too much because I'm afraid I'll spoil some stuff for you. But I've tried to be as detailed as I can, but there's just so many spoilers in this movie, in my opinion. It's like I'm not giving you things that I wouldn't want to hear. Like, I wouldn't want to hear the things I'm not telling you, okay? So I would consider them spoilers. So that's it, guys. 8 out of 10. I think that it gives some good background to the original 3, and it's beautifully shot and well performed. All right, guys. So that's what it is. It gets a solid 80%, in my opinion. All right, peasants. Tune in tomorrow for the spoiler review. Good night, peasants. Bye-bye.